Forward.
There we go.
Thank you all so much for joining Sustainable Tulsa for First Thursday, kicking off 2022. We're really thrilled to have you with us today, and we hope that you are all staying safe and healthy, of course. Again, you are attending First Thursday on Get Paid for Being Sustainable, and so we're really looking forward to today's presentation, and we're thrilled that you're interested and learning more about this and being a part of First Thursday. So before we get started, again, we hope that you're each staying healthy and safe. And I know we're all ready for some normalcy, and we look forward to seeing you in person again soon. Hopefully in February, we'll share a little more about that here in a little bit. But again, thank you. And Teresa's going to go ahead and launch a poll for you if you don't mind taking that poll to answer those questions while we begin. We really appreciate that. And again, thank you to our sponsors as well for helping to, it's how we're able to continue to provide this program free to our members. And we want to thank our lead sponsor, Williams, our neighborhood sponsors, which are PSO, Oklahoma, and PSO Wind Choice, our community advocates, American Waste Control, Cavanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, and I just lost my Save Our Streams, as well as we've added Tulsa Farmers Market just this last year. We also still have Spirit Aerosystems, One Oak, and our newest member is Bank of the West. So thank you to all of them. Give them a little round of applause, send them a thank you in the chat. We're definitely thrilled that they continue to be an advocate of getting the word out about how to live more sustainably and supporting our work, as well as helping us share some of our local and national leaders in sustainability. I also want to thank my board members for being here today. Richard Cox, Nadia Kirilova, Carrie Rowland, Mike Teague, James Williams, Rick Katarski, Connor Carroll, Ann Money, and Carolyn Janney. Really appreciate you all joining us today. Give them a round of applause. We appreciate their leadership for Sustainable Tulsa, and they've really helped us. It's an amazing board in helping us move forward in this new kind of normal. Hopefully we get back to another normal. I don't know what that's going to be, but again, appreciate their leadership. I also want to thank my Sustainable Tulsa team. We have Teresa Kerrigan, Jill Maud. We have our newest team member, which is Sam Crossan, and we just appreciate their teamwork. I just am glad to be starting off this year with them. So please say hello to Sam in the chat and welcome her to Sustainable Tulsa, as well to the Sustainable Tulsa community. Thrilled to have her on the team, and she's will be a great asset to us this next year. It's going to be a good year. We've got some things to announce here coming into the year, but more about ways that you can support us easier than ever. It's that $25. Your name will be added to our growing list of change makers in our community. This also helps to continue our Sustainable Tulsa program and helps to support some new programs. For instance, we have a pilot we're doing right now. We're working on launching a pilot this year on an individual scorecard, how to help individuals with their sustainability efforts. So all those extra little support really helps us launch those programs. So if you've never become a member, please become a member today. It's $25. Your name gets added to the website, and it lets folks know that we really do want to see a sustainable Oklahoma. So please join us in that. Our next B2B Case for Sustainability series will be on renewable energy. It'll be February 24th from 8 to 10. It'll be hosted there at TU. And again, it'll be on renewable energy. Really looking forward to this panel and appreciate TU hosting us, and look for that invite soon. Our next First Thursday will be February 3rd, and that will be from 12 to 1 p.m. online again. And our guest speaker will be Dr. Eid, and he will be sharing about PFAS. And if you don't know what that is, I just learned about that from Dr. Eid, and he has got a very dynamic presentation. So we're looking forward to that. So look for that update coming up in the next couple of weeks. Okay. we've got our Sustainable Tulsa has launched. We launched a Facebook group page in January of 2021. So just been around for a year now, and it helps to connect our community. If you're wanting to look for more ways to have a conversation and share with other sustainably minded folks, do that. Join our Facebook group. Teresa's going to put that link in the chat for you. And so anyway, thank you so much. And I'm going to actually hand this over to Sam Crossan. She's going to introduce our digital booths and our sponsors. Sam?
Okay, so first up, we've got Williams Brothers. And so I'm just going to go ahead and play this for everybody.
Since Williams was founded in 1908, much has changed. The growth of cities, rise of technologies, our transformation from a family-owned business to America's clean energy partner, supplying natural gas for cooking, heating, and powering 76 million homes. And while so much has changed, some things should remain the same, like keeping promises, exceeding safety standards, doing the right thing, and protecting the environment. Williams, we make clean energy happen. Since Williams was.
And so next up, we have PSO.
Hi, everyone. This is Carrie Rowland with PSO. I just want to remind everyone about PSO. We are open for business this year and hope that you take advantage of all our offerings, both residential and commercial. So this is an older slide of a residential tune-up offering that we had during the summer. Maybe Jason will help us fill us in a little bit later on this one. So, but it's important to recognize if you're doing a rebate, we really would like for you to check out our website first to find a PSO participating service provider. It's really important you work through our network because we have such high quality standards.
Thank you. We really appreciate your support. And then
of course we have the Win Choice program. This is a great way to make your home or business more sustainable. It's a very low cost. And if you are a PSO customer now, you're already about 20% win, but this just gives you a little extra that you can take credit for.
Awesome. Next up, we have American Waste Control, and we really appreciate all your support. And if you want to find out more, you can go to AmericanWasteControl.com. And then next up, we have the Met, and Allie from the Met is with us.
Yes, the Met Centers, all of our locations are currently open and accepting recyclables. We are still processing all of our recyclables. So if you have any leftover paper, cardboard, anything from the holidays, we are taking those and recycling that. Also, we're still doing a lot of recycling education. So anyone who's connected to schools, church groups, anyone, if you want us to come out and talk about recycling or sustainability, we can do that free of charge. We also have our bin loan program for nonprofits in schools as well. So if you need any free bins, we can provide those as well. So just get in touch with us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. And then next up, we have Janelle with Save Our Streams.
Yes, so I'm with Streets and Stormwater Save Our Streams, and I have a slide on the next page that kind of illustrates our household pollution collection facility. It is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and closed from 11:30 to noon for lunch. And we take all sorts of household cleaners like herbicides, pesticides, car products, latex and oil-based paint, and other miscellaneous items. So check us out.
Thank you, Janelle. And then we have Tulsa's Farmers Market up next.
Hey everybody, yep, Tulsa Farmers Market. I just want to thank everyone who did make it out to the market this past year, 2021, to support our local vendors. It was a very successful year despite the many challenges, the obvious obstacles. We're proud to say that we supported 78 local vendors. We held over 59 markets, and we hosted over 23 nonprofits and community partners. So we're excited to kick off the new year. This coming Saturday will be our first winter market edition. We will run every other Saturday through March. So for exact dates, you can check out our website. Of course, it's really cold, so not a whole lot of fresh produce is growing, though we will have plenty of abundant, responsibly raised meat, dairy, ferments, baked goods, and a whole lot more. So we do hope that you come out and support. Of course, this can be a financially difficult time for our farmers, so it's really important to make sure we go an extra effort to support them. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Chris. And we have Eric with Bank of the West up next.
Yes, so Bank of the West, we are the only major bank in the U.S. that has a strong sustainability policies as far as our lending. And then we also do kind of with the theme of being rewarded for being sustainable. We also give discounts whenever you're doing home equity financing for energy efficient home improvements, also discounts on electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, things like that. And we have a checking account dedicated to climate change, where we are fighting climate change, where we have partnered with 1% for the Planet.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Oh, I'm going to send it back over to Corey now.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to all of our sponsors and folks sharing about great things going on in the Tulsa area, how you can continue to be engaged with opportunities to live more sustainably and what's going on. Now, you know, we've all had this, been really challenging this last couple of years. We all know this. And one thing many of us have tried to do is improve our home because we're spending more time in these spaces. But today we're going to, you know, share a few more ways to improve your home. And as you're setting, as I mentioned, your New Year's resolutions, if you haven't done that already or adding to them, I want to encourage you to include something from today. You're going to hear about building science, home health, and which can help you save money, improve the health of your home, and help you reduce energy use that will help to protect our environment. So Sam and I had the pleasure yesterday of visiting with Jason, and truly there's really not enough time for him to share all that he knows and his experience, but how to improve your home. But I am sure he will remind you of some things that you meant to do or ones that you're getting started on. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Jason Fisher. Jason Fisher is with ICF, and he is a BPI analyst, a HERS, and a technical specialist. Jason is with ICF, which is international, and is a certified home energy rater and a certified building performance with Building Performance Institute analyst and proctor. Mr. Fisher manages the Energy Star New Homes program, the Home Performance with Energy Star program, and the multifamily program for PSO AAP, the electricity company in Tulsa and surrounding areas in Oklahoma. He works with home energy raters, HERS, and trades professionals, homeowners, and builders to construct some of the most energy efficient homes in Oklahoma, and to rebuild existing homes to more efficient, energy efficient standards. Just as a side note, he had the opportunity to be an advisor and a crew leader on 2 of ABC's Extreme Makeover Home Edition television shows. We heard a little bit about that yesterday, and he appeared as a green building expert, as well as and was featured on OKC Metro TV news show and Oklahoma Forum and on Home and Talk USA and with the Cajun Contractor. So anyway, we are in for a treat. Jason, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us some things that we can do around the home.
Well, thank you so much, Corey. I'm going to start off with a little safety moment because PSO loves their safety moments, and so we've got to talk about some of that. So the first thing that we've got here is carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide is a deadly poison that comes from burning stuff, whether that be gas or wood or whatever it is. It's a byproduct of that. And what it does is it causes you to have kind of a dull headache, weakness, dizziness, nausea and vomiting, shortness of breath, confusion, blurred vision, and loss of consciousness. And then finally, it could actually lead to death. And so where does this stuff come from? Well, here it is right here. These are the main culprits. The picture on the left is a flue that has been disconnected. When it's disconnected, the exhaust from that appliance doesn't go up the flue anymore. It comes out into the house. And so that's one of the things that we want to make sure that all of the flues are good and connected. The other thing is a cracked heat exchanger, and this is what that looks like. This piece of equipment is inside the furnace on a gas furnace. And as you can see, the little discolored areas there, that's actually where this furnace has gotten so old that the heat has burned through the steel, and it's allowing the exhaust gases to come into the regular airflow through that machine. This is extremely important because, you know, when the exhaust is coming into the house, and there could potentially be some, the combustion of the appliance is not burning efficiently, then you could have carbon monoxide. And as I said, that could be very deadly. Here are a couple of other places. These flues are an abomination to flue kind, to be real frank about it. The one on the left there is, not only is it cockeyed and not meeting up with the flue hole there, the exhaust, but it doesn't have a draft diverter. If you look at the picture on the right, the draft diverter is that little cone-shaped thing at the top of the water heater. And that allows the flue to collect all of the exhaust gases, and it allows the hot air enough buoyancy to put those things outside. The picture in the middle is actually a Mylar dryer vent that's connected to the flue, or connected as the flue. And Mylar is a type of plastic. The inside temperatures of these things can be upwards of over 200 degrees. And so you guys can do the math. It's going to melt pretty soon, and then we're going to have problems. The picture in the middle there is kind of a snaky looking thing. It makes a big circle. Now keep in mind, hot air goes up. So if you have it in this roller coaster type of arrangement, the hot air or the exhaust gases don't go up the flue. This was a lazy contractor that put this together, but oddly enough, all three of these pictures were taken here in Oklahoma as we're out doing our thing. What it should look like is the picture to the right there. And basically, as the flue goes up, you can kind of see the little vent support there is sort of at a horizontal thing. If basically the more straight that is, the more vertical it is, the better it is to get the exhaust gases out, and the more efficiently it works. So we want to make sure that there's not very many bends and it wants to go straight up. That'll get them out of there. Finally, the last piece of where does carbon monoxide come from are these little guys right here, the stove and the ovens. Even brand new ovens we've tested are putting out enough carbon monoxide to give you headaches and stuff like that. I want you to think about whenever you're preparing food for Thanksgiving or Christmas and you're in there for a really long extended period of time, you're standing right in front of this appliance. And so the best thing to do is to fire up the fan that's right above it in your vent hood and make sure that that fan is running all the time. The dirtier these appliances get, the more carbon monoxide they put out. And until they reach steady state, they put out carbon monoxide. Steady state is basically if you set it at 400 degrees, the time in which it takes to go from 0 or whatever temperature it is, 70 degrees, up to 400, it's putting out carbon monoxide. And that stuff needs to go out of the house. If you've got a recirculating vent, I would suggest looking at maybe getting one that exits it to the outside of the house. that's a little bit about our safety today. This is what we teach from at PSO and BPI and Home and ResNet. But what we want to do is we look at a house as a whole system. It's kind of like going to a general practitioner. You know, you don't go directly to the heart guy. You want to make sure that you go to a general practitioner, and then that practitioner is going to look at your whole body and say, you know, you might need to go check out your heart. And then he will refer you on to somebody that is a heart specialist. But we know enough to look at the entire house and to figure out if the whole house is running efficiently, or what we can do to make sure that it does run efficiently. Some of the things that we look at are energy sources, the environment, the pollutant sources, and we can kind of get into some of that stuff in here in a little bit. But all of the systems inside and all the insulation and the air sealing, all of that stuff has to be right in order for your house to work correctly. So in this presentation, I want you guys to think about the last time you were in junior high school, or maybe even high school, back whenever you were doing all of the laws of thermodynamics and all of that fun stuff. I'm sure everybody really paid attention, right? But this is the stuff that we do every day. We deal with the laws of thermodynamics and how heat goes from one place to the other, how water is transmitted throughout the house, and all of that junior high and high school science is what we apply on a daily basis in houses. So the first law of thermodynamics is energy is neither created nor destroyed. It moves from forms, but you can't destroy it. So that's one thing to remember whenever we're looking at some of these things as we walk through this house. The second law of thermodynamics is that energy flows naturally from areas of high concentration to low concentration. And this is what that looks like. If you have air and you've got a high pressure system and it comes in and it always wants to go to low pressure. Everybody lives in Oklahoma here, and I'm sure that you know this absolutely, because whenever the weather changes in the fall or the spring, what happens? You know, we could potentially have tornadoes. Well, that's exactly what the second law of thermodynamics is talking about, because you've got a hot air down low, cold air up top, and it wants to be in equilibrium. So it starts to spin, and the next thing you know, you have a tornado there. So second law of thermodynamics, that's exactly what it is. Moisture, wet goes to dry, heat, hot goes to cold. It's all of that stuff that we look at when we're walking through a house. And this is a great way to think about, you know, with your kids. You always say, you know, close the door because you're going to let all the cold out. Actually, you're not really letting the cold out, kids. You're letting the heat into the refrigerator. So we want to stop that, make sure that refrigerator door is closed. These are the three methods of heat transfer. We've got convection, conduction, and radiation. And I'm going to go through each one of those. Convection is heat moving through a fluid such as air or water. The best way to think about convection is if you look at a window, it's kind of a circular motion that's inside the two panes. So that airspace that's in between the panes of glass, there's a cycle that's going on inside that. And so one pane is hot, one pane is cold, and it's trying to transfer that temperature from one side to the other side. And that's called a convective loop. And this is what it looks like inside. So as I said, the pane gets hot and it gets cold on the other side, and that temperature starts flowing. That's why if you look at brand new windows, like an Energy Star window or something like that, they're always filled with something. It could be argon or krypton or various other heavier than air air. And the reason for that is it slows that convective loop down. It doesn't totally stop it, but since the air inside that has been replaced with krypton or argon or something like that, it slows that temperature transfer down, and that's what we want. Conduction is something a little bit different. So what I want to do is, you know, when I'm thinking of conduction, I'm thinking of that big old juicy steak that's sitting on your a steel plate or an aluminum, you know, a plate that's you're cooking it with. The reason that we use metal, any type of metal, is because that metal transfers that heat really efficiently from the stovetop or whatever heat source you've got through that material and into the steak, and it makes it good and cooked and juicy. So if you think of the same thing, everything has heat transfer. It just is dependent upon whether or not there is enough insulation to slow that heat transfer down. And we'll be talking about some of that stuff too. This is radiation. So radiation is a wave that's coming from the sun. It's a lot like the wave that's inside your microwave, only it's a little bit different wavelength. But those waves, that radiation that's coming from your sun, penetrates or goes through materials. A good example is a window. So the reason that we put a reflective surface on the inside of the window is to reflect those radiant energy waves back out. And the way that you can tell this is go into grandma's house and move the furniture out of the way that's been sitting in front of the window for a really long time. You'll notice that the carpet has been faded all the way around it, and it's a lot darker underneath that piece of furniture. The reason for that is that radiation coming from the sun is washing out that color of the carpet around that piece of furniture, and then underneath it, it's been blocked. So that's how we do that. But radiation can heat up the inside of an attic. It can heat up the inside of a window and all kinds of stuff. So we want to make sure that we're looking at that and how that works. All right, so this is what we do when we're looking at heat transfer. Hot air goes up. It's one of the laws, right? You can't get away from all the laws. So this is what this stuff looks like in the real world. Cold air comes in at the bottom, goes out through the top. Heat transfers through windows, through floors, through roofs, through the ceilings, through walls. There's all kinds of heat transfer that's going on in a house during the duration of a day. And we want to make sure that we address all of those things, even through the basement and crawl space. So this is what this looks like. So in a crawl space or in a basement, or basically the bottom portion of the ground, you know, where the floor is, that's where cold air is going to be coming in, and then hot air is exiting out of the top in the attic area. Now, if we look at the top plane and the bottom plane, basically where the crawl spaces are or where the attic is, if we seal those two sections off first, then you're going to have a much more efficient house, because there's this thing that's called air buoyancy, and it's the chimney effect. So if you look at a chimney, or a stack effect, I mean, if you look at a chimney, you notice that air is coming in at the bottom. Usually it's heated, it's going out the top. Even when it's not, if you've just got the flue open, the heat inside your house is going up that chimney. That's just the way it is, because hot air is buoyant. The same thing happens in a high rise or a skyscraper. It just happens at a greater volume. So if we can stop that air from being quite so buoyant, then we've made some big inroads there. And this is what all of that stuff looks like in the real world. The picture on the top left is a attic hatch or an attic access. You pull that down, there's a ladder there. Those are very rarely, if ever, sealed around them, and they're never insulated. They do make some that are, and really that's probably the best way to fix this, unless you want to just totally get it out of the house. These are best found in the garage, because then they don't bother anybody. But if they're inside the house, it's a big problem. The picture on the bottom left there, the plumber came in and he fixed the toilet and all the plumbing issues there, but they did not end up putting the hole back together with the sheetrock. And so that hole there is not just open to the inside of the wall, it's open to the inside of the wall, the attic, and the crawl space. And so all of those three areas now are communicating, and it's pulling that air into the house. Now, I want you to think about what lives in a crawl space. There's some nasty stuff down there. There's mold, there's mildew, but there's also rodents and spiders and all kinds of stuff. And some of those animals defecate down there. Well, whenever your house goes under a negative pressure, when the air conditioner comes on, it pulls that air inside the house, which is why many of us have allergies and asthma problems and stuff like that. It's because of these little holes that are everywhere in our house. It's pulling that air in from places that we don't want to breathe it. The picture on the top, kind of in the middle there, it's got a little pipe coming out. The guy that owned this house was a computer guru, and he had wires going all over the place through conduit, but the conduit went from the attic of the garage to the inside of the house. And he didn't put the cap on this thing, so all of that air is coming right through that pipe. So we ended up closing that off and making that better. The one below that, you can see brick in that picture. There's brick coming together with sheetrock. This is a fireplace surround. And anytime you've got a seam around those areas, we usually caulk that off because air is just flowing through there almost like a tornado. It's pretty bad. Those are some of the biggest parts that we look at whenever we turn on a blower door. This is what we look at. Top left, or let's see, top right, you see a bunch of wires there. That's his breaker box, and he didn't put the cap or the top back on the breaker box. And so all of those wires are coming from somewhere. Most of them are from the outside. The main trunk line is coming right into the top of that. And so you've got a lot of air flowing into the middle of that. We put the cap back on, we sealed it off, and it's doing much better now. The picture below that is in his attic, in his closet. And you see there's a hole there. Instead of putting the little plastic caps on to put the pole on, he punched a hole in the sheetrock and just shoved that pipe right in there to hang all of his clothes. But that hole now is flowing air like crazy. The one on the top right is a can light, and you can see it's kind of drooping down a little bit. Even if it wasn't drooping down some though, that the circumference of that is still leaking air. And so the best way to fix that is to put some caulk on it and then to push it back up inside. Many of these can lights too, especially the older ones, they are made for incandescent light bulbs. And because of that, an incandescent bulb puts out a lot of heat, so that thing has to be ventilated. So there's holes up at the top of the thing in the attic. Basically what that's doing is it's creating almost like a Venturi effect. It's pulling the air from the inside of the living space into the attic because that air is heated with that incandescent bulb. But now, since we have LEDs and we have CFLs, we can screw an LED or CFL in there and then seal that up tight, and you're not going to get any more air leakage through that. And then finally, this hole on the bottom section, that was, again, the plumber was trying to fix some stuff in the wall, and they ended up not putting this this access back on, the access panel back on. Again, that's inside the wall, and you've got airspace that's coming from the attic and the crawl space that's flowing right into the house. So when we look at insulation, this is what we look at. This picture is of wall insulation, and as you can see, let me see if I can do, yeah. See my little arrow, this little piece right here is, that insulation is actually prepared correctly or installed correctly. And as you can see, it's touching all 6 sides of the wall. Now you only probably see 4 pieces there, the 2x4s at the top and the bottom and the ones in the middle. But keep in mind, the outside of that has a sheathing on it. The inside of it has sheetrock, and that insulation has to be touching all 6 sides, both front, back, top, bottom, and sides. If it doesn't work correctly. And as you can see, the picture in the middle there is kind of smashed or squished in. That's called compression. And anytime you compress insulation, it doesn't hold the air correctly, and it doesn't work as efficiently. And then the one on the far right there is an airspace at the top, an airspace at the bottom, and guess what you've got there? That's a convective loop inside the wall. So we want to make sure that we eliminate all that and that insulation is installed right, the correct way. This is what some of this stuff looks like in the real world. The picture on the bottom left there is compression. If you look and see right next to all of the framing members, the 2x4s, it's pushed in and then stapled on the inside of that 2x4. Well, that allows air to flow all along the side of that 2x4, and it heats that that 2x4 up. Around the electrical socket, around the plumbing area for the washer and dryer, all of that should be flush against the wall whenever you put the sheetrock in. And as you can see, a lot of that is compressed. It really needs to be separated and cut correctly and then installed the right way. The picture on the right side is actually one of the best installations of batt insulation I've ever seen. And this is so rare that this same picture has been passed around all over the building science community because we just don't see this. But that's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be face stapled. And as you see, there's no compression or anything in that installation. Here's another couple of pictures that I've taken out in the field. The one in the middle there, insulation guys call that chinking. We call that compression. So basically you're taking all the R value or the effective insulation out of that wall by smashing it in there and squishing it into those little tight spaces. The other thing that I see in this picture is the electrical wires that are coming in. The insulation should be separated and then cut around those wires so there's insulation on the top, the bottom, and all the sides of that are touching the 2x4, and the wires are kind of nestled inside that insulation. Around the box, again, they didn't cut that correctly. That insulation should be touching that box and then kind of coming in around the back part of that. So there's about 3 things going on. There's compression, and then you've also got the convective airflow that's going around that as well. To make matters worse, this is another thing that I've seen out there. This was done a lot in the 80s, but this is visqueen. The visqueen is stapled after they put the sheetrock or the insulation on, they put the visqueen in and then they sheetrock over the top of that. The problem is visqueen, it doesn't allow water to go through it. And so somebody's taking a shower inside, or it happens to be a really hot, humid day on the outside, all that water flows through the wall and then it collects on the surface of that visqueen and migrates into the wood. So now we have mold and mildew issues. We have a potential problem with the house, the framing members rotting. So this is really not something that we ought to be doing. And if you see that out there, I would make sure that it's done correctly, pull that stuff off. So one of the tools that we use to verify all of this is an infrared camera. And this is a picture of an infrared camera looking at a house on a cold day. The window, the circle portion there is the window, and obviously that is not going to be quite as insulated as the rest of the house. But this whole house should be this color right here. It should be blue if it was insulated correctly. What we have right here is an air gap at the top and an air gap at the bottom, and we've got a convective air flow that's going alongside that, the surface, and heating that up. So you've got a lot of heat loss there. Down here, same thing. The insulation isn't touching these 2x4s that are brighter, and it's heating those things up. So they're glowing really bright in this picture. And then if you notice, right in this area right here, we've got a seam as well, and that's not insulated very well either. So that's what we look at. This is what it looks like whenever it's on a good, cold, frosty day. And this picture was actually taken out in my neighborhood. You see the zebra stripes. That tells me that the air inside the house is coming into the attic area and it's heating that area up. So these are good places to go for R values. The one on the right is a Colorado R value, and there's a link probably in your chat screen now that has that link to it, but you can look up the R values for anything and everything on that page. This is a knee wall. A knee wall is the wall that is between attic space. It shares attic space and inside space. These are never insulated correctly. And that's what that looks like in the real world. What we do is we pull all of that insulation off and we foam it to make it look like that. And that way you won't have a convective loop that is running along the surface of that sheetrock. This is an attic that's done correctly. You can see that there are no framing members visible at the bottom of that floor. This is another way to do it. So you pull all of that old insulation out and then you foam underneath the roof deck. And this is much more efficient, but it's a little bit more costly as well. And there are some places that you really need to do this and some you don't. So if you're wondering about that, give us a call and we can help out with that. Now for the HVAC system. This is, right now we're in a 14 SEER AC, that's the code, but seasonal energy efficiency rating is the SEER, and that's basically the higher the number is, the more efficient it is. But if you have just a regular guy come out and put in a 13 SEER air conditioner, this is what you get. This is what you have to do to make sure that you get 13 SEER. The proper charge has to be put in correctly. The airflow has to be right. Air ducts have to be tight and sealed, and it has to be sized correctly. And if those things are not done, you're not getting what you're paying for. This is the way we seal up the ductwork, stuff called mastic, and this is where the mastic goes. You can see every seam has to have mastic on it, and every piece where it comes together with a dissimilar material like the flooring, sheetrock, whatever the case may be, that also has to be sealed with either mastic or with caulk. And when we fire up the blower door, this is what it looks like. That airflow comes through these vents and it pulls the cellophane that down that we've got that sealed off with. So that way we know that there's an air leak behind that grill. And that's where we start looking. Most of these leaks can be sealed up with caulk, with mastic, but the returns and the supplies and the boots are really where most of the leaks occur, and that's where we start looking first. This is a picture of a return. You see that this piece right here is separated, so all of that should be masticed, and it's not. And anytime that you have dirt and grime inside the return, that's where the air flows into the air conditioner. If there's stuff like this down there, it's leaking. And so all of these pieces need to be sealed up. In this picture, you actually see a little bit of water area there too. So they've got other issues going on too. This is what it looks like when it's done correctly. And this is what it has to be done to go through our programs, because we test it. These are chases that are between floors. And as you can see, it's pretty darn impossible to seal some of this stuff up. Best way to do that is just to abandon that and go to a different type, put in a ductwork that's inside this, you sleeve it. That's really the better way to do it. And then in this picture, you actually see a gas pipe too. So this was kind of a problematic project, but we got it taken care of correctly. Ventilation. So ventilation is right. Now, you hear quite a few people out there that say that you could get a house too tight. That's really not true. You can get it too tight, but you have to ventilate it the correct way. So we say seal it tight, ventilate right. And the reason that we ventilate is to get some of this stuff out of the area, the living space. So VOCs, those are volatile organic compounds. A lot of that stuff comes from paint. Formaldehyde, a lot of that comes from carpets, or it comes from furniture. CO2, we've already talked about that. Allergy removal, that's coming from the crawl space, from the walls, from the attic. So those three things need to be kind of sealed off. And then cooking contaminations, you can probably figure out where that comes from. Cleaning chemicals are another thing. There are a lot of cleaning chemicals that put off various gases, and we want to make sure that those gases get outside of the house. So this is a coil. This little guy right here is the coil, and this is the condenser. These two pieces of the machine have to be matched through a matching system and sized correctly in order for the HVAC system to have the correct SEER or be as efficient as it needs to be. And so that's one of the things, whenever you purchase an HVAC system and you ask for a rebate, we're going to ask for the HRI certificate from your HVAC guy. And that's what we're looking for, to make sure that those two pieces are matched so that it is as efficient as it can be. A lot of the new equipment has variable speed ECM motors in it. And so basically what that means is instead of on and off, it has a motor like this inside of it that slowly ramps up or slowly ramps down. And that way It doesn't matter if you're having a kegger party inside there or if it's just you and your spouse hanging out watching TV, that HVAC system is able to meet the load that's in your house. And that's one of the great things about a lot of the HVAC systems that we see coming through. Since they're so efficient, they've probably got an ECM motor in them. And then finally, mini splits. This is a technology that has really grown up overseas and it's really coming here now. These are great because they do both heating and cooling, but they eliminate all of your ductwork. And so you'll have a pod on the wall or you'll have one flush mounted up in the attic or the ceiling area. And these things work great. Conditions really well, but you're talking about a 20 to a 22 SEER HVAC system on this. So they're very efficient. That's kind of what I've got to talk about here. The rebate, all of the rebates can be found here at this website, the powerforwardwithpso.com. And I'm open for questions, Corey. If there's any questions out there, I'd be happy to talk about those and answer those now.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And if you do have questions, send those on to Teresa or throw them in the chat there. So, but I did see one. There was one here from Nadia early on in the program. But thank you, Jason. Again, just so many great reminders of some little things that we can do to save money, reduce our energy use, and also make our homes a lot healthier. So thank you. Thank you. I'm looking for her question here. It was from Nadia asking about certain heaters. So I'm sorry, I'm scrolling up to find that question for you. But again, if you have any questions, please throw those in.
Corey, I can ask it.
Okay.
It was, so we don't have a traditional water heater. We have one of those box heaters. So I just wanted to know if there's any concerns for that type of apparatus.
Do you have an electric or gas one?
It's gas.
Okay, great. So really not really a concern, just a maintenance thing. You've got to wash those out with vinegar every once in a while, because in Oklahoma, we have a lot of calcium that's inside of our water, and it's kind of like an artery. If you eat a bunch of lasagna, you know, it'll slowly shrink up, and then finally it coats all the inside of that the pipes, and you have a hard time exchanging heat with the flame that you've got. So just make sure that those things are taken care of. As far as the carbon monoxide, you've actually chosen the correct one there, because air is entering that appliance from the outside. It's burned in a combustion chamber, and then it's put back out to the outside. So that air never mixes with the inside of the house or even around the box itself. So that was a good choice on that one.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Nadia. Great question. Another question that came through is, what about cleaning refrigerator coils?
Oh my gosh. I think I might be the only one in my whole neighborhood that does that. That's a great question. Yes, it's very important. I think my wife probably thinks I'm nuts, but yeah, I clean mine out at least twice a year. It's kind of fun for me. You know, I pull the vacuum out and get up under there and suck out as much of that stuff as I can. But yes, if you, anytime a coil is clean, it's going to work better. And an example of that is, I don't know if you guys are old enough, but back in the 80s, there were a lot of cars that were coming out of Detroit, and they didn't have a big enough radiator on them. Well, the radiator is the heat exchanger. And so when you're driving out to California or something like that, there was these cars that were all along the side of the road. He overheated. Well, the reason for that is they weren't getting enough heat exchange through that radiator to cool the engine down. But it's the same thing with any kind of air conditioner or refrigerator. If the coils are dirty, even on the outside of the house, those coils need to be cleaned off. So absolutely clean them off. And the way I do it is I've got kind of this long tube that attaches to my vacuum with a little brush on it. And I just get up under there and clean them all off as best as I can. You can't get them perfectly, but absolutely clean those off. That's a great idea.
Great. All right. Thank you. So someone here is building their own house, and they have a specific question about insulation and the stage of it, when to spray, options, batting, even wool, and what are the best options when it comes to the method, but also environmental concerns?
Well, that is, insulation is a tool. I look at it as a tool. And so various insulations meet the requirements of the house better than other various insulations. And basically what I'm trying to say here is spray foam is not the panacea or the silver bullet for insulation. It is a very good product, and it does some stuff that other insulation can't do, like air seal. But if you have somebody that comes out and they don't do that correctly, there's two pieces of material that come together at the tip of that gun. And so the temperature of those two liquids and the mix, in other words, it's got to be a 50-50 mix. If those things, those parameters aren't met, you're not really making the insulation that you think you're making. And sometimes it can smell like skunks or dead fish. Sometimes it doesn't apply itself correctly. If you've got a really cold substrate, like, I don't know, it's like 18, 19 degrees in Oklahoma City right now. If you went out and sprayed spray foam on a wall, that temperature of the foam is coming out upwards of 90 degrees. It hits the wall. It's so cold, it actually makes these large air pockets. So what I'm telling you on that is that spray foam is a great material. If you've got a guy that really knows what he's doing and sprays it correctly, then I would say absolutely do it. If there are other ways to achieve the same thing, you might want to look at that. I'm a big fan of insulating concrete forms for the walls. And I did a 2,800 square foot workshop with a loft in it for my dad a few years ago. And I did insulating concrete forms on the outside, sprayed foam the attic. His biggest bill so far is $60.
Great. Wow. Well, thank you, Jay. And there's more questions coming in, but unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. But Jay, you've offered to stick around for just a little bit afterwards, where people have a few other questions, can stick around and ask you a few questions. Is that so? Are you able to do that with us today, Jason?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one more thing on that last question too. It might be a good idea to either get with me or get with a home energy rater and have us look at the house to figure out what types of insulation would be best for the areas that he's talking about. So, but yes, I can hang out as long as
Maybe you could give your cell phone number in the chat so people can text you.
You know what? There it is right there.
Okay.
Woo-hoo! All right.
Great. Wonderful. Well, gosh, like I shared in the beginning, more than you could even imagine, some great information. And a lot of some of those things were like, oh yeah, we've heard we should change our filters, but getting that reminder and doing those things is really important. So thank you so much, Jason. You see there, Teresa just launched a new poll. We're kind of trying to track to make sure we're sharing. This is a different poll than we've shared before. So please take a moment to look at it. We want to make sure that we're getting information to you that's helpful and that it's something you may apply in your life. So that's our goal. And so take just a few minutes to answer that. And Jason, again, thank you. A big round of applause. I wish we were in person so you could hear it, because I know everyone is thanking you for those reminders and those tips. So thank you so much. While that other poll's going, I just want to remind everyone that we will be sending out an email tomorrow of today's recording, as well as any links and resources discussed during today's event. Of course, we'll share Jason's contact information and also the program that PSO has if you want to come and have somebody like Jason come in and do a thorough review of your home. So those programs are out there, and it's a great way to start 2022 out, really getting your home, again, meeting that triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet, that quality of life piece, healthy home, planet, and helping to protect our resources and using less of them. And then, of course, that bottom line is saving some money. So anyway, we'll be sending that out to you. And while we're doing that, also, I think Teresa's going to share in the link again for that Facebook group in the chat. So another way to kind of keep the conversation going. Maybe Jason, you can join that chat group. We'd love it, because I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions, but it's a great way to ask questions of others, like, what do you do about this and that, and to be connected. And so sign up today. We'd love to have you part of that Facebook group. And next, let's see, we'll launch one more poll if we're done with that poll. Teresa, thank you. And thank you all for taking a moment to fill those out. That really helps us out a lot. We've got on this last poll, just kind of helping us know if we're doing a good job and what we can do to make it a little better and things like that. Teresa, thank you for launching that poll. And I also want to thank again our sponsors, our lead sponsor, Williams. Again, they've come back to help us again in 2022. So thank you so much, Williams. Also to our neighborhood partners, PSO has been sponsoring First Thursdays, I don't know how many years now, Carrie, but thank you so much. And PSO Wind Choice as well. Definitely Wind Choice is another way to look at that People, Profit, Planet piece of resources and renewable energy in our community. Our community advocates we want to thank today is American Waste Control, Cavanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Air Systems, Tulsa Farmers Market, and our newest member and sponsor, Bank of the West. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope that you will come back next month and let us know what you worked on. We look forward to seeing you at our next First Thursday, which is Thursday, February 3rd. It'll be on PFAS with Dr. Ken Eade. We hope you'll join us. Have a great and safe January. We'll see you in a month. All right, take care. Bye-bye.